Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the 2024 Local Administration Refresher for Evergreen, Indiana. This is a required training for anyone who currently holds local admin permissions in the consortium.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Courtney Brown. I'm the director of the consortium, and I have with me Britta Dorsey, Development and Support Administrator and Trainer for Evergreen, Indiana.
Hello.
Just welcome to the 2024 Local Admin Refresher. We're glad you're here. So what we're going to go over today, we're going to do a review of some consortium policies and procedures. We're going to cover some 313 administrative changes and then some frequently asked questions that come up. If you have a question during the presentation, feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat box, but we are going to wait until the end of the webinar to answer those. We should have plenty of time for questions. So we'll start with policies and procedures. Just as a reminder, the Evergreen Indiana Shared Circulation Policy was given a major overhaul this year. The Executive Committee approved the new policy in April, but work on the policy actually began in the summer of 2023, with the bulk of that work being done by the Patron Services Committee, as well as a working group from that committee and other member libraries as well. The policy was pared down to just 4.5 pages with the intention of being a framework for member libraries, giving you the freedom to establish personalized local policies for your library. So that means your library can and should have local policies beyond the shared consortial policy. So this change really returns the power back to member libraries. One of the big changes in the policy is this specific proof of identity requirements were removed. So to quote the new policy, proof of identity and residence for the purposes of account establishment and regular renewal shall be determined and described in the individual Evergreen, Indiana member library circulation policies. So again, we are giving member libraries the power to decide what proof of identity requirements are acceptable for their specific libraries. So that also means if your library doesn't have a local circulation policy, you should create one.
And I want to jump in a little here as well. The policy also broadens the choices a library has on like third-party vendors. If you want to, like I know some libraries use Patron Point and one or a couple others that are out there to help establish proof of residency and things like that. So um, it, yeah, like Courtney said, it just gives you more power back to you.
And all staff members that work in the Evergreen, Indiana ILS must have an Evergreen, Indiana Code of Ethics for Staff form signed and on file at your library. We take the Code of Ethics very seriously. But when signing the form, staff is agreeing to not violate the privacy and confidentiality of information within the database. So this includes patrons' private information or reading records. Staff can't use confidential information for personal interests or gain. Staff also has an obligation to keep personal skills and knowledge up to date and share knowledge by participating in committees and recommending policies and procedures. You're also agreeing to cooperate with other Evergreen Indiana Library or Evergreen Indiana members, treating them with honesty and respect. If you or a staff member don't have this form on file, it can be found on the evergreenindiana.org website under Member Resources and then Forms. And then there's also a separate form there for directors. Those Code of Ethics forms for staff should be on file at your particular library. The Director Code of Ethics forms should be on file here with us in the Evergreen Admin Office.
Well, if you were able to join us for one of the 7 regional user groups we held in September and October, the next things that we go over will sound pretty familiar. But there were many of you that were not able to join us, so I wanted to make sure that everyone was kind of aware of some of the new features or updated functions that's coming in the upgrade, which is happening in a couple weeks. Remember the 23rd and 24th of November. So first, let's look at shelving locations. So we can't, and we know that we cannot permanently delete shelving locations, but in when they updated the little module, they provided a column with a filter that allowed us to hide those deleted shelving locations. Now that filter is going to be turned on by default. So when we go into, okay, so we're going to local administration and shelving location. So that filter that is on by default, let's go to a library that actually has probably more uh, deleted shelving locations. So right now, of course, we can only see the shelving locations that are currently being used. I'm going to increase this number of rows. Now, if we remove this filter, clicking clear, now we will be able to see those deleted shelving locations, the items that are the shelving locations that don't have any items attached. And let's say if we were to refresh this screen and go back, that filter is going to just turn back on by default. I think it's just a nice little quality of life update that will help hide those shelving locations that we no longer use. Hatch itself, unfortunately, has not been updated yet, but they have updated the Enable Hatch and printer settings pages. They have combined them and they have been angularized, or maybe you can just think of them as they have been updated. So right now, when we go into our workstation menu under administration, let me make this a little bigger. Administration workstation. We have the print service hatch page where we actually mark that box to turn it on, and our printer settings where we set those print contexts. Well, now in 313, when we go to administration workstation, we are down a link. So that enable hatch and printer settings pages have been combined. So now we only have to go to one page or one link. We'll use this check mark to turn it on. It will warn you if the printer settings below will have no effect if it is not enabled, because the print contexts only work if you are using Hatch, but it just allows you to, it's just one less link to accidentally click on, because I mean, I still did it when I would try to enable Hatch or change something and I would click on the wrong one. So once you enable it, you will just uh, select the contexts for each of your printers, and then those could be connected to your print templates. Org unit configuration, we'll just go to it. So right now, when we go into the org unit configuration screen, this is where we manage our kind of about us contact information, like our email address, phone number, and our hours of operation. Right now, we have these little check boxes that allow us to add a note field. This is what can be used when, like, if you close every Monday from 12 to 1 for staff lunch or something. This allows you to do that. But right now, when we check mark that box, it enables all of the boxes and adds that note field. So it's broken. I mean, when you check mark one box, you expect only one box to open. Now they have fixed that. So when we go into the org unit settings, and we go into our hours of operation, that note field is permanently enabled, and it's just right below the day of the week's open close time fields. So just leave it blank if you don't want to use it. And these notes do appear on your library's kind of like about us page in the classic catalog. Close dates, they have updated not the close dates editor itself, but where patrons can see that information. So they have added the upcoming closures into the About Us page on the Classic Catalog. So all closed dates, including emergencies, will now appear on the library's About Us page in the Classic Catalog. So I wanted to, let's see if I can do it right this time. So going into the MIG Classic Catalog, and let's look up The Last Graduate. Just going to click this first one. And you might be confused when I say the library's About Us page. When you are in the Classic Catalog, we have the patrons version of the item table. The location under here, these library names are links, and they will link you to the library's About Us page. So we have, of course, the opening hours, which is taken from the org unit config settings, and then those upcoming closures. So anything you enter in the close dates editor and you save it, it is going to appear here. So be aware when you enter the reason for closure that it is going to be visible to anyone who accesses your About Us page. All right, so now we are going to take a look at the most frequently asked local administration related questions that we receive, whether it's through the help desk, through a direct email, any way you ask us questions. So staff account maintenance. We receive those occasional help desk tickets from library staff who are unable to log in to the web client. Almost 90% of the time, it's due to the staff working account having expired. If this is the case and another staff member is able to log in successfully, a local admin can bring up the account and update the expiry date. So local admins can edit and renew all staff working accounts except local admin and Cat 1. If you've noticed, let me bring these up again. When you are logged in, if you are logged in as, say, a Circ 1, um, and maybe when you go into another staff person's account, and maybe it's expired, but you try and go in and edit it or just maybe update the email address or something. You get this alert that says editing users in this group is disallowed. Um, so anyone other than local admin will receive this little error message. But if you are logged in as a local admin, and you bring up a staff person's account. Obviously, you might not know their barcode, so you could obviously use the search for patron function. Nope, that's not going to be a good one to choose. Say Circ 1. Notice that they have that permission to edit. So if they have to update the expiration date, they are able to do that. And once they save, that staff person should immediately be able to log in to the web client. If a staff person leaves your library, leaves your library's employment and has a working account that doesn't have Cat 1 or local admin permissions, you need to update the password to their working account or accounts, depending on how many they use. We do recommend updating any shared accounts like circulation. You need to change the expiration date to like the day before or just any day in the past so it expires the account and makes it unable to log in. And then you might want to look at their personal account. If it's a staff card, it will probably need to be transitioned to another patron profile type like resident, non-resident, whatever is appropriate. Again, if the account has Cat 1 or local admin permissions, you will need to submit a help desk ticket and we will be able to do this for you. This year, we updated the staff permissions spreadsheet. So we wanted to provide that to you, especially if you have questions about what certain profile types can and can't do in Evergreen. You are able to view this spreadsheet. There, it is linked on the .org website, um, but it's not fully complete just because the if a permission is grantable or not. And what that means is local admins have the ability to grant certain permissions to other staff working accounts. Um, and so that will, once I get that updated, you'll be able to more easily see um, what that looks like. Or you could always logged in as your local admin. If you were to go to the user permission editor in a staff working account, you would be able to see which permissions are grantable. So anything that has a check mark and is grayed out means that it is already applied to that permission, whether it's because it has been manually added or it was granted based on, for example, their Circ 1 profile. Um, Anything that is grayed out but blank means that it is they don't have that permission and you cannot grant it. So you would be looking for those checkable applied boxes in order to add that specific permission. Um, and then the depth. So if you are a branch would be just they would have that permission at their um, home library or their working location. System would allow them to use that permission at any of their branches if you're a multi-branch system. Um, Sublib book, honestly, I'm not quite sure what these are. Consortium is, of course, something that would provide permission for at the consortium level. But that's usually for like the check-in, check-out, things like that. But another example, maybe the admin carousels. Um, if you have extra like Circ staff that learn how to use the carousels, if you are currently using the classic catalog, then you can add those or submit a help desk ticket, and we can make sure the all of the carousel permissions have been added. But there are some that you can add to accounts. Um, so it can be useful. It's one of those, um, oh, what's the phrase? Don't give them as much power that they are not trained for. With great power comes great responsibility. Yes, I went there. But this is a great spreadsheet if you want to look at. I have it split up between admin, circulation, cataloging, so you can see all of the applied permissions for each um, category. If your library ever decides to officially change your hours of operation, like open on Sundays during the school year, or change your hours on Saturdays from like 10 to 4 to 10 to 2, etc., you can do so in the organizational unit configuration. So let's go into that. I'm in MIG, so anything I change will not be real. Let's go back in there. And organizational units. So when we want to change our hours of operation, we have our branches and our system level. Let me grab a single branch first. So if you are a single branch, um, you will want to make sure you change your hours of operation at both the branch level and the system level. You can tell the difference of what you are looking at based on your short code, your library short code or short name, what have you. If you are looking at just the first 5 letters, that means you are looking at the system level. Here at the top, you can see like Butler, we just have the first 5. So we are at the system level. Any branch levels will have the first 5 plus a dash and then 3 letters. So when you change the hours of operation, we'll go into branch or and system, go into that hours of operation, and then let's say, okay, so it's school year, so let's change that we are open from 12 to 5 on Sundays, and then apply changes. And then again, we want to make sure we go into the system level as well to change that. And again, these are visible on the Classic Catalogs About Us page. For multi-branch systems, I would assume you would want to just change it at the branch level. If your library staff changes, let's say you get a new director, and you need to update the email address for notices, whether it's print notices, email, what have you, or even on your OPAC's About Us page, you can do so via the org unit settings page as well as in library settings. The organizational unit email address covers your library's About Us page in the classic catalog. The library settings will update the email listed on notices. So to change that, let's go into, well, we're already here in main settings. Let's go into the consortium. So let's say we need to change the address that appears on our in the catalog. So I have changed that there and save. And this is probably something you will also want to look at the branch and system level, though here it looks like it might have, it is either automatically updated or that was a change I did from yesterday. So just make sure you double check the system and branch level when you change the email address here. To change the email address for notices, we're going to go into local administration and library settings editor. We want to wait for the editor to finish loading. Otherwise, if you try to change your location or start filtering immediately, it's not going to load correctly. So here I'm going to just filter using the term email. And you are looking for the sending email address for patron notices. Again, this is for email and print notices. Here we have the context. So this tells us the level this email address is being used for. So consortium COL. So this is the branch level. And the value is the email address. To change that, we will click on edit. And then we want to change that value to whichever email is appropriate. Now, I believe you can only have one library setting for this, so this will likely be set at your system level as a multi-branch. I mean, you can set it at the system level for single branch as well, but multi-branch, you will probably want to set it at the system level so it will encompass all of your branch notices that are generated. Another question we get often, though of course these are all questions we receive often, which is why I'm mentioning them, is why an item isn't being targeted for a hold when it's supposedly holdable. Most of the time, it's the shelving location. If the shelving location is marked as non-holdable, then any item in that shelving location will not fill a hold request. So shelving location and item attributes. Shelving is yes, item is no. The item will not be holdable. No to both location and attribute, not holdable. It's also not holdable if the shelving location is no, but the item attribute is yes. And it is holdable if both shelving location and attribute are marked as yes. The shelving location will override what you have in the item attribute. So even if you have your item marked as holdable, if that shelving location is marked as no, it's not going to be targeted. keep that in mind, or if something seems to like you, like why isn't this being targeted? Um, Check the shelving location or also check the item attributes to see if maybe that's the issue with that. Many local admin permission holders are in charge of making sure their holds shelf is up to date. One way to do this is to make sure canceled holds are removed. Once a hold has a status of canceled, whether or not the staff person, it's been canceled by the staff or by the patron themselves in the OPAC or Aspen, um, it's going to have a status of canceled on the hold shelf. But in order for it to be removed from the shelf, it has to be checked in. Um, Now, if for some reason another item is, if the item is another library's, it's very possible that it's probably still on your physical hold shelf. The patron might have just canceled it and you never pulled it off of the shelf. Um, so to do that, let's go into the hold shelf. Of course, we don't have one, so I'm going to, who is in here today? Uh, well, I don't know, but I'm just gonna pick a library. And this is older data as well. I don't know how old, but it hasn't been up, the MIG server hasn't been updated in a little bit. So here, let's sort by status. We have one item that has a status of canceled. So that means we can pull it off of the physical hold shelf and check it in, whether to send it back to its home library, to be captured for another hold, whether it's at your library or another's. That allows you to go ahead and check it in and remove it from the hold shelf and then send it on its merry little way. The hold has to be canceled before it can be checked in to kind of remove it from the hold shelf. So we have that clearable holds option, and this will tell you what holds on your shelf have passed that 7-day hold expiration. And if you recall, we talk about the hold shelf expiration date of 7 days. That doesn't mean the hold itself is canceled. It's not going to automatically change a status to cancel. It's not going to cancel itself. It just means that it is available. It has passed the 7 days, so it will show in that clearable holds list, and then you can cancel the hold and then check in the item to be captured for another hold or send back to your shelf or its home library. So this is important to make sure you keep your hold shelf up to date, because especially when it might be in other libraries. While we know some libraries choose to hold it for just a little bit longer after 7 days, it's important not to hold it for forever, which no one does, but. Hopeless holds. This is another function that should be checked semi-frequently, and like the holds shelf, it's not limited to local admin users. But since it's kind of a maybe collection or circulation cleanup, that I wanted to cover it today. So a hold becomes hopeless when a hold request cannot be filled by any of the items on a bibliographic record, whether it's because the single item that's on the bib record has gone missing or is damaged, or a title level hold has been placed on a record where all of the holdings have parts. Those are some of the ways that a hold can become hopeless. There are a few things that we can do to clean up our hopeless holds list. Um, we, I came up with this number like 2 days ago, but I figure if you might want to cancel hopeless holds that are older than 1 year, we know active holds should expire after 12 months based on the system, but sometimes, at least I have seen based on the dates in the hopeless holds function, that is not always the case with these types of holds. So You might want to go through and cancel hopeless hold requests that are older than a year. Um, we have the option to transfer title level holds to another bib record if one is available. Um, any other hold type, like so part level hold, meta hold, those would have to be canceled and then placed on a different record. So place a new hold of maybe the same type or different part hold type on a different record. You are able to modify that hold, that request date, so it matches the original request date, though that's probably only useful if there are a lot of requests ahead of it. Let's go into our hopeless holds. See this one. Okay. So we look at the hopeless date. We also look at the request date. If it's maybe older than maybe a month or so, or I mean, you know your patrons and how long they're willing to wait. Like the patron might not even want it anymore, or maybe they found another way to get it. So let's say Frasier season one, we have this hold that is hopeless. It became hopeless in October. So I'm going to, let's see if there's another record out there that we can transfer this hold to. It's also possible, because it's a hold type of a title, that it did not fill because there are only parts on here. So if we scroll down, we can see that all of these items on this record have a part. So this is a case where you would want to go into the patron's account, place a new part level hold on this record, and then cancel the title level hold. I always recommend placing the new hold first and then canceling the old one. Um, so let's find another one that might actually a Barbara King song. Here it is. Okay, Prodigal Summer. So when we can see here when the request, the hold was placed and when it became hopeless. So if we click on the link for that, it's going to take us to that record. And now we can see here in the item table, okay, well, that explains why the hold was became hopeless, because the only item on this record had been marked missing. So what we can do, what I like to do first is search for the same copy. And how I do that is I go to Mark View and copy and paste the ISBN to search for that. I know in this case that it is not there, so I'm going to look for another copy of this book. And we know that it was a regular print book. And so I'm going to find, let's see, we have two copies here. This one has 4 out of whole 4. This has 35 out of 38. So I'm going to select this record. And then I'm going to go into Mark 4 and reset. Mark for title hold transfer, because we can only transfer title level holds to other bib records. So title level hold transfer. And if we go back to Mark 4, we can compare the current database ID that it is targeting to the database ID on the bib record. So we can see that they match. And now we're going to go back to the hopeless holds page. And so we have it here. And we can also see that since the hopeless date happened just 2 days ago, we assume the patron probably still wants it. If it's older, like maybe these ones for maybe before October, you might want to ask if they still want it. So I'm going to select that hold. We can either right click or go to actions and then transfer to marked title. It should transfer. And so now it's no longer here. Now, if we go into the view holds, we now have that hold that was placed originally on 11/3. See how it keeps that request date. And now it has 35 potential items to fill that hold. A reminder about Hatch installation. We still get, I mean, we know we set it up Hatch, 5 years before, and then 5 years later, we go through our computer cycle where we get new staff computers, and we have to go through and set it all up all over again. So as a reminder, that Hatch installation, in order for it to work correctly, it needs to be installed in a specific order. So first we have to install the desktop application. Once we have installed that, you then want to install and enable the browser extension. Once you have done that, then you can go back into the web client and enable Hatch. This document in our new knowledge base should help walk you through the steps on how to perform those actions, where to go, recommendations, things like that. Again, the Hatch is only available in Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox. It is not available in Edge, though if you are only using a single printer on a workstation, then you don't need Hatch. Another thing about Hatch, though, right now we are aware that Chrome has posted a notice in their Chrome web store that the Hatch browser extension may not be supported for that much longer. The community at large is working on updating the extension so that it conforms to Chrome's requirements. If you would like to follow along, and you can access the Evergreen Launchpad, which is where like bugs and wish list items are submitted to the community at large. But this goes, you can just follow along with the progress of the project to updating the extension. There's a lot of tech ease that I personally don't understand. I know there's a lot of you out there that do. Um, but if you are interested in following along, and this here will let us know when it has been basically completed. And I'm sure they will notify us when that occurs too. But we have until June of 2025 to update it. So we have a little bit of time. All right, let's return to Courtney.
All right, some reminders about the Evergreen Indiana Payment Program. As a part of the program, libraries can collect funds owed to other Evergreen Indiana libraries. This money should go into your library's pass-through account until you are invoiced, and those funds are invoiced quarterly. Those payments go to the Indiana State Library's business office, then are redistributed back out to the owning libraries. Payments are generally paid the following quarter as long as all invoices have been paid. So the money can't be redistributed until all libraries have paid their invoices. So if there's a delay in getting your payment, this is usually why. You can use the payment program reconciliation reports page to track these funds. We will also send out a reminder in the weekly newsletter that the invoices are ready. So Britta is pulling that up right now. If you click on quarterly invoices and there isn't one listed for that particular quarter, that just means you didn't collect any money owed to other Evergreen Indiana libraries. You'll also be able to see the library's quarterly payments on the payment program reconciliation page. So this is the money that other libraries have taken in on your behalf, and that will be coming back to your library. Also, good to remember that these reports are not available indefinitely. So if you want a record of them and to have access to them forever, please be sure to download them to your network. And then a little reminder about bill ownership. Overdue fines belong to the library that circulated the item to the patron. The lost and damaged fees belong to the library that owns the item. And then if there's ever an Evergreen function that isn't working the way it should, maybe you have a question about workflows or just a general question about Evergreen or the Aspen discovery layer, you can submit a help desk ticket to the admin team. You are always welcome to email me or Britta directly, but a help desk ticket will allow more than just our eyes to take a look at the issue, which means it's possible you could get your answer quicker. And then help desk tickets also help us track issues and see trends as well. When you submit a help desk ticket, please be sure to give us as much information as possible. So barcodes, staff user account, how the issue occurred, the time it occurred, screenshots. We want all the info. The more info, the better. There is a place to mark your request as urgent, but please only mark your request as urgent if Evergreen is inaccessible by everyone or a server is down, etc., things like that. Most tickets should not be marked as urgent.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? I know there was one earlier about it's probably the hours of operation. What if you use Aspen instead of the classic? The Aspen hours is separate from the classic catalog or even from Evergreen, Indiana. Um, so keeping track of those hours of operation will be um, done within Aspen itself. You'll still want to update within Evergreen because that is what will change those overdues, those checkout, those due dates for circulation, especially if you have an emergency closing. So you still want to, of course, update it in Evergreen in the web client, but you will need to separately update like hours of operation in Aspen.
Great. And then is there a way a patron can be alerted if a hold turns hopeless so they aren't waiting for it and can find another source?
Not that I'm aware of, unfortunately. Um, so I think in some cases, if you look at your hopeless holds list frequently enough, your patron will never know that the hold turned hopeless, especially if there are more copies available to try to request. That we get into the issue then when there's only like one copy available in the catalog and then it's marked as missing. So you might want to think about a procedure to handle that if you by contacting the patron with their phone or email um, to let them know that it is hopeless because otherwise they will not be told. I don't My assumption if their hold was hopeless and they logged into their account, if they were to look at their hold requests, it would probably stay saying waiting for item.
Okay, let's see. Is there a policy that says renewing or updating patron accounts can only be done by the patron's home library? For example, I cannot renew an expired account if my library is not the home library. I pulled up the procedures guide.
Yeah, I'll get it too.
That staff at member libraries should refrain from modifying a patron record of another member library if that patron does not present their Evergreen Indiana library card, except in the case of a patron transferring library districts. Well, that didn't really answer your question, did it? It's under patron record modification is where I was looking, but that's not exactly.
Updating.
Yes.
Um, It says you can renew expired resident patron accounts if the patron's ID and proof of residency matches the account information and the account is in good standing. Other like non-resident recyclable borrowers, they have to renew their library they have to renew their card through their home library. So as long as you note the place an alert probably so the home library can more easily see it on the patron account. You may renew expired resident patron accounts, but they will, I mean, proof of residency and identification is probably very helpful.
Rita, can you show where the hopeless holds list is again?
Yes, hopeless holds list is in administration, local administration, and hopeless holds. Again, you don't have to be a local admin in order to access it. Um, and it should automatically default to 10 years, the start range to end range, to see what is on your list. Let's see. The item should, so we're back on the holds list with canceled holds. So the item should still show up on the clearable holds list, even if a patron cancels it, correct? Yes, cancel holds will still show, I believe should still show on the clearable holds list, but it will remove once you check it in. So yeah, canceled items and items holds that have gone past that hold shelf expiration date. I think those are all the questions that were asked. We have a couple minutes left. Are there any other questions?
If you do think of anything, after we sign up off the webinar and you thought, oh shoot, I should have asked them that, um, feel free to contact us. I think the next page has our contact information. We're more than happy to help you, or if you just want to submit a help desk ticket, we can do that as well.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.